Hello, everyone. Um, Good afternoon. I hope everybody is waiting for the weekend. And we have a fantastic session lined up today, which is called Demystifying AI, and fantastic lineup of speakers. So I welcome everyone to the event for today. So this is the event which is partnered between NASCOM, Center for Excellence in IoT and AI, and Affine. And I'm your host for today. My name is Amit Kurekar. I am working as head of AI solutions delivery at Money Lion. And overall, 2 decades of work experience. Prior to this, I worked with Yodlee. Prior to that, I spent decade plus in Procter and Gamble across various roles. And my passion comes from with Industry 4.0 is from the work which I did with P&G a few years back, starting from visibility to taking an AI solutions to the market, taking it on the shop floor, and enabling the manufacturing operations way back from 2015 to 2019. I was also driving Global Smart Manufacturing Forum at P&G. Now, today we have a fantastic lineup of speakers. So before we reach that, one of the quote which I found out on the internet, fourth industrial revolution is not about all the new apps, new technologies. It's about new era and new ways of doing and thinking the new way of doing business. It's by Nikki Ward, and it's altogether true because what I've seen is the companies will completely change the way they are working in coming years. And to take you through some of those use cases, we have a fantastic speaker lineup. So today, with our today's keynote, we will have one of the well-known personalities in analytics and AI. His name is Mr. Pankaj Rai. He's with us today to talk a few words on Industry 4.0 and AI. So he's currently Chief Data and Analytics Officer at Aditya Birla Group. Heads company's strategy in analytics and data science, enabling all sorts of businesses in the conglomerate. He is an alum of IIT Delhi and I am Ahmedabad, a very well-known person in the world of analytics. So I hand it over to Pankaj now to take us through his fantastic journey, which is driven from 25 plus years of career across various companies in Wells Fargo, Dell, Standard Chartered Bank, and now Aditya Birla Group. Over to you, Pankaj. Welcome on board.
Thank you, Amit, and thanks for having me here. And you had a fantastic quote from Nikki. One of the quotes that I remember from my young days, and I don't know who it is attributable to, was a small story that we used to see as kids, that there was a young boy who prepared for an essay on the cow, and when he went, the question paper was on a forest. So he said, there's a forest and there are many trees. There's a cow tied to the tree. And then he went about writing the essay on the cow because that's what he had prepared for. So the reason for that analogy is that whenever a topic is given to me or any question is asked, I try to say, is that the best question that is worth answering, or should I sort of give another perspective to that question? So not because I did not prepare for it, but I think in these days, it's always good to clarify the question and answer the right question. And hence, I will attempt to do that. So while the topic is Industry 4.0, I do want to share a few thoughts and few perspectives before coming into that. So let me begin with just sharing some of my perspectives, some of my learnings, which is the data. I'll share some insights and then some action. So, in our analytics people, we tend to look at data, we try to provide insights, but most important is action. So I'll try to provide some actionable insights for all of you, hopefully. So just beginning with some thoughts. I think it's always good to begin at the top and what has changed and what has not changed in the world. And I can only talk about the last 30 odd years that I can say that I have been in the corporate world. So I think what has not changed is the basic, Maslow's hierarchy of needs. We still need food security, all of that, going up to self-actualization, which is reflected in the needs in the terms of farming and manufacturing and services and so on. And as progress happens, more and people seem to be self-actualizing and then consuming more and more services. So, but the basic, Maslow's hierarchy hasn't changed, and therefore the need to satisfy those things continue the same. Everyone is looking for big results, nice way of solving their problem. I don't think anyone's interested in other big words or any terminologies that consultants use. So I think it's important to remember what has not changed, which is the consumers and the folks who are using our services at a high level still consume those things, although the proportions may have varied. I think the big thing, in my opinion, which has changed from the past to now is more on the delivery of those services. So while the needs are by and large structurally similar, proportions may differ, the delivery side has changed rapidly, because I think at a very, very macro level, we have moved from a scarcity oriented economy and mindset to a more abundant oriented economy and mindset. And I think what that does is that fundamentally changes a lot of things. And, just to give you a few examples of what I mean, the difference between scarcity and abundance is that even we ourselves, we are used to fewer choices in the past and used to take decisions based on external trends. Now, since there are so many choices out there, pretty much everything is possible. So therefore, we can't make decisions based on external trends. We'll have to look inward and see what is it that we really want and take decisions based on those new models versus the external trend-oriented model. So I think we have to look at, how this delivery has changed. And I think what has started to happen, therefore, is that a lot of different technologies have converged. All these exponential technologies converging is allowing us to do things in a very differentiated manner. So therefore, that pace of change is requiring us to look at things differently. And therefore, anything looked at a point in time is not relevant anymore. The delta is relevant. In fact, I talked to folks in my team and said that if I do a performance appraisal of someone, it's a point in time. What did you do? I think the more relevant thing is, how is that changing? How are you, modifying? How are you learning faster? How are you making increment faster? It's almost like the, velocity of an agile team. How many features are you delivering and all of that? So I think the delta or the speed is more important than a point in time. So I think that is changing. I think the other thing that I have observed, I have spent most of my life in services and banking and so on and so forth. I have done a bit of Six Sigma in the past. So in the past, I think Six Sigma was probably good enough because the world was a bit linear, slow moving. But today, you can't do continuous improvement. You have to continue to look at now continuous reinvention. It's more like a continuous disruption. And it is possible because of the convergence of exponential technology. So I think just laying the ground that, things at a high level are changing very drastically, and we need to be aware of those changes and be cognizant of that and not be bogged down by the minutiae and the detail. And therefore, the point I'm trying to make it that if you are a business which has a factory, certainly you should think about a smart factory, and we'll talk about that, which is where Industry 4.0 comes in. But it's important that the larger business context, the larger framework, is itself open to disruption. So imagine that if, and we have seen that many of these auto companies were optimizing and, improving their factories, but all these platform economies came in and disrupted hotel to auto to any of those things. So if those folks were just focusing on what they have and optimizing that, then the disruption, came in and took it away. So the limited point I think I want to make is that while we will talk about Industry 4.0 and we'll talk about factories and manufacturing, I think it's very, very critical to remember that the larger business is what counts. The larger business is open to disruption, and you need to be aware of it. And we can't be sitting in our silos and thinking about just optimizing one thing, while the sort of the top goes away from the top of our head. So I think that was the point that I wanted to make. It's almost like saying that if I was a shop floor guy in a manual factory, I was optimizing how I manufactured it, but the CNC machine came in and then I became sort of irrelevant. And that's the analogy that I would like to at least keep in the back of the mind when we talk about Industry 4.0 and or my own experience of being in a large conglomerate like Aditya Birla and how we are dealing with some of these things. So I think we do keep an eye on the larger trends. We do keep an eye on what are the other things which can happen. We do keep investing in newer areas, newer technologies, newer ways of doing business, while continuing to optimize what we have. So I think this is the second part, which which we'll talk about, the first part is very critical and always has to be kept in mind. And as a group, the which I am part of, I think a lot of investments and a lot of thought goes into new disruptive areas and new things while we optimize what we have. Now, Industry 4.0, I mean, a lot has been said and a lot has been, written, and a lot of people do various things. I'll share with you what within our group we are thinking, what we are doing, and what we think, makes sense to us. Just for perspective, the Birla Group is really, spanning across various businesses and verticals. We are in fashion and finance on one hand. We are in, metals and minings and carbon and many commodities on the other. Also into trading and several other different businesses. So it's a fairly large conglomerate. I think the way we look at Industry 4.0, which I think is a kind of a, in my opinion, a buzzword created to sort of give some credence to how do you make factories smarter. The terminology that we use within our group is more, smart, sustainable, and safe manufacturing. So we kind of utilize the term 3SM within our group to say the factory doesn't have to be just smart, but it has to be safe and sustainable as well. So 3SM is the sort of our own internal buzzword when we look at our factories. Now, coming to factories, I think factories have been in our group for very, very long. People have been trying to optimize these factories very judiciously. There are very, very, I would say, efficient factories in our group. People have been SMEs and so on and so forth. Now, the advent of new digital technologies is now allowing us to capture data, connect these machines, edge computing, and so on and so forth. So the way we are, approaching this whole problem is to say, how do we strengthen all these, capability that we have by embedding them into our factories and making them smart, sustainable, and safe. So our approach is sort of a 4P framework, as we call it. So the 4Ps really stand for projects, platforms, people, and partnership. And what it really means is that first of all, you look at your factory or your business, you try to determine what your overall strategy for that factory or that business unit is. We sort of internally use the terminology digital ambition, that you are a factory, you want to become XYZ 3 years from now, which is your digital ambition in line with your business ambition, that I want to be the most efficient factory in energy or logistics or whatever that might be. And that digital ambition then is fulfilled through this 4P framework. And the 4P really is projects, which is to say that, let's say you are the metal company, you are Hindalco or aluminum or whatever, and you think energy is a large cost. So energy management is a big element for you. So therefore you have prioritized energy saving as one big idea, where first of all, we will do certain projects. So we might do a digital twin project to kind of look at your factories, try to simulate your factory environment, and try to help you optimize certain things, which is the project side of the P. Once you have gotten success in that area, you try to create whatever you have done in a more automated fashion using data engineering, ML ops, into a sort of a platform. So that is the second P that comes into being. The third P really is all about people. How do you train the people at different levels to have that line of thinking to say, how do I take decisions using some of the data and analysis, and how do I improve the process, on a weekly, monthly, quarterly basis, and so on and so forth. So that's the third P. And the fourth is all about partnerships, that all that we do is never done alone. It's always in conjunction with other partners. And the partners are also various different categories. Of course, there are these, big tech cloud partners. They provide us a lot of, infrastructure support and many other services. Then we have startup partners who provide some niche, elements where we are not good at, and we think we can leverage them. Then the third category is really these, what we call industrial tech partners, folks like GE and Schneider and Siemens and ABB and all of them have digital practices. They have a lot to offer us, and we leverage them quite extensively. And then there are some other niche consulting partners that we use in these manufacturing areas. So net, what we tend to do is look at creating some kind of an ambition document, utilizing the 4P framework, sort of almost one after the other in conjunction, to help build internal capability within each factory, so that all of them are sort of, in that 3SM area, that they can call themselves smart, sustainable, and safe manufacturing practices. And this is an iterative process. So this process continues every year. You kind of come up with what your sort of next phase of ambition is, and that ambition then gets again translated into various priorities and projects. I think the biggest thing that we are finding in doing some of these things is not really what I spoke about, which is the technologies, or which is about training people and all of that. But I think the softer issues which seem to be hidden, which is not talked about, and those are related to talent and funding and governance and decision rights and so forth. Because I think if you look at digital or industry 4.0 or any of these new terminologies, I think what I have at least learned is that these are not really so much about technologies, and these are also not about asking the right question. I think these are also about setting in place processes, approaches, and frameworks which are softer in nature, and they tend to get overlooked. So to give an example of talent, what do you do about talent? Should you hire your own team? Should this team be sitting in factory? Should they be in head office? Should they be outside? Should they be contractors, own people? What should their career path be? Would you want to train your internal people? Do you want to rotate them across companies? All of that. So talent is one whole area. How do you train your middle management, senior leaders? How do you make sure that all of them understand this new world of industry 4.0, digital, and so forth? So talent is a very critical one, and like I said, there are so many different things that you need to take. The second one is really about the ways of working. Do you delegate? Do you do it top down? Historically, a lot of things are being driven top down, but there is a need to allow certain innovation and experimentation to happen at the grassroots level. So how do you determine the decision right? What kind of forums do you take? How do you allow people to take risk? How do you reward risk, don't reward risk? So how do you create that culture of continuous enhancement, improvement, utilizing new technology? So that culture part is the other one, and related governance mechanism that you need to create. Funding is the third one. Do you give some funding at the factory level to the individual? Do they have budgets, to the central budgets? What kind of metrics do you measure? There are many factories that we have where when you set up a new factory, the cost per ton or cost per whatever is the capacity is an important metric. Absolutely. In the past, if you did not, focus hugely on capex, you would be dead. You can't compete. But now let's assume that you are setting up a more modern digital factory. Maybe you are willing to compromise on cost per ton and capex because the opex or the variable cost is far lower. So how do you change your project evaluation funding metrics to make that happen? And I can go on and on. So I think there's a lot of these softer factors that everyone needs to consider and keep in mind to really make industry 4.0 or digital or data analytics or any of these new exponential technologies to be leveraged by making the right culture, which relates to training, talent, funding, and so on and so forth. So I think I always say that some of these newer things require a lot of mindset change and alignment from top to bottom, because the new generation of workforce is having a certain type of culture. The other generations have had a different experience and they have a different culture. Aligning all these cultures, leveraging the best of both is very, very critical, because many a times we tend to go from guardrail to guardrail. Sometimes we believe that the youngsters know it all and let them drive it. Sometimes, in the traditional companies, you think that the older one know it all. I think both know something meaningful. The blend is where I think the magic happens, but I think it's easier said than done. And some of those cultural elements take a lot more time. So I think net, Amit, I will close by saying that while Industry 4.0 is a combination of new exponential technologies, which are enabling our factories to become smart, safe, and sustainable. I think the bigger issues which companies and individuals need to tackle are softer in nature, which I spoke about. And I think if we get those softer things right, I think the harder things are much easier to do than the softer ones. Thank you, and back to you, Amit.
That's fantastic, Pankaj. I think you've very well said, because all of the digital transformation, one of the central component of any digital transformation program, people and culture is one of the key component. And thank you so much for sharing those thoughts. Loved your idea of 4 Ps within Aditya Birla Group, what you are driving. Really like it. One of the question which came up, and I just would like to get your insights on, within ABG or your companies which you have worked with, when it comes to Industry 4.0, how you have seen the levers or greatest levers for Industry 4.0 changing by business? Can you give some examples because there is a lot of diversity of products and processes within Aditya Birla Group itself. So how do you think the levers of business are changing?
Yeah. So, just another anecdote from the past when I was, I used to do data science and data analytics, and a question of this nature would be asked, and I would say, I believe in lean analytics. And when I said lean, I said, you start with the business first and then pull the data just in time as needed. So many a times, we tend to look at some of these things bottom up, saying, so industry 4.0 has all of these 5-6 different components. I have a drone, I have these edge computing devices, I've got all these fancy things, and how do I use it? It's equivalent to saying, I have all of this data, what do I do? And I say, forget it, what you have. Let's figure out what is it that where you want to be. So I think outside in, I think is most critical to say. So to give an example, if I'm in the aluminum business, the biggest cost is energy. If I had a few resources, I should probably put all in energy. If 35-40% of your cost is that, and if I can save a few percentage point there, that's what matters. If I'm Ultratech Cement and I'm in the cement business, hugely logistics. If I can save a few pennies here and there, I can save a lot. So I think in every business, one has to understand what is that 80-20 rule, which are the big cost drivers, and also which have the opportunity to be saved. So therefore, once you figure out what that is, so if I was taking the energy example, maybe I will start investing in a digital twin. But if I was taking the Ultratech example, I would start investing in a logistics insight tower. So I think the need to create a digital solution or utilizing different industry 4.0 solutions is secondary to my understanding of what my business driver is and where the business benefit will come from. And frankly, I always say that if you did not even know those technologies, frankly, there are enough people who will help you solve those problems, albeit some of them might charge you a bit more initially. But I think it is still better that you have to first figure out what you are trying to do, because many a times not having that and then having the best solution is probably worse than the first one.
Absolutely, Pankaj. Do we have any other questions from the audience? Also, you can unmute and ask a question if you're not written in the chat box. All right. Okay. All right, Pankaj, thank you so much for that insightful session. That was really great. And it was really insightful. And we are happy to hear your thoughts. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Amit. Thank you very much.
All right, everyone. Moving on to the next session. Before we reach to the next session, can we share this slide on the event agenda? So today we just had our first keynote session by Pankaj Rai. As next, we will have Fireside Chat with Manas. He's the CEO of Afine. Followed by that, we'll have also panel discussions, which are joined by eminent panelists from diverse set of experiences. And I'm sure you will be enjoying this. So moving on to our next section, which is Fireside Chat with Manas. Hi, Manas. Thanks for coming over.
Hi, Amit, am I audible and I'm visible?
Yes, we can see you. And just to introduce Manas, Manas is CEO and co-founder of Afine. He's also an alum of IIT and ISB. About a decade plus, he founded Afine as his firm, which is specialized in manufacturing analytics, gaming, CPG, and some of the high-tech, focusing on services for some of the high-tech companies, and in terms of CPG companies. Manas, he's also an evangelist with business building ideas and a lot of entrepreneurial spirit. When you talk to him, you would love to hear your ideas. And me and Manas have been associated more than a year, but I've been enjoying every conversation with him. So I'm looking forward to have a chat with you, Manas, in terms of how do we demystify AI in manufacturing, and getting your perspectives on what's really happening in this area?
Sure. I'm looking forward to it as well. I mean, very interesting topic. And I think, having somebody as eminent as Pankaj Rai open the session, I was all listening in, and lot that, I would be saying would be some bit of a, I would say, manifestation of what Pankaj mentioned. And I'm also eagerly looking forward to hearing from the panelists in the next chat. So, I definitely would love to wrap up my session faster to get in, more interesting stuff.
Thanks, Manas. Thank you so much. So, everyone, I think the Industry 4.0 is really a vast topic, and most of the industries, some of the levers could be different. The stages of their maturity could be really different. Some of the companies might be just starting up in their digital transformation or Industry 4.0 journey. Some companies might have already started a few years back. Some of them might have some model plants which are really smart factories, and in some companies there could be smart factories as well as really early on factories wherein there is no digital present. Now, Manas, the question to you is, especially for companies and manufacturing units and manufacturers as such, the area is vast. So at what stage really they need to come to experts like you or Fine in terms of engaging for Industry 4.0? How do they really start their journey? When do they engage with you, and what should be really their objectives in terms of engaging with you? Should they start with real problem statement, or the engagement could start early on? Hey, we do want to do something in Industry 4.0. Help us with that. So how do they engage with you?
See, Amit, this is a very pertinent question, especially given that Industry 4.0 as a concept is still in its infancy. And I would practically, take off from where Pankaj left, saying that having data should not be the first, point where to begin. Having a problem statement in hand should be the first point. So either of the two choices, I think, in my humble opinion, are correct. Either when you already have a problem statement in hand, and hence you're looking for somebody who can help you create the solution, deploy it, and manage it also, or run it. Because especially in manufacturing compared to analytics in some of the other domains and industries, where I can have the entire analytical solutions run on software, manufacturing is an equal combination of hardware and software, right? So for example, if I'm trying to build a solution which can, flag off any issue that is about to happen with your CNC machine, at that point of time, I also need some people who can integrate the solution with the CNC machine embedded system, and hence not just analytical professionals, but also you need software professionals. Take a step ahead if you want something which could, which let's say have a computer vision based application for identifying defects in your end product or your intermediate product. There you need a camera, you need an edge device, you need probably a small line manufacturing apparatus to segregate the products which are not, qualifying the quality test, right? And hence it becomes slightly complicated. So I think, either when you have a problem statement in hand, you look for partners who can bring the entire program management angle, not just analytics plus, but analytics plus the manufacturing, computer vision, edge devices, everything, the entire paraphernalia. Or the other alternative is when you're thinking about, hey, should we jump on the bandwagon of Industry 4.0? I think that also is a very good step to bring in any of the experts to give you a rich perspective on, in your industry, what would really give you the ROI. Hence, instead of you starting Industry 4.0 journey because there's a compulsion from your board, or because you as a manufacturing unit also want to look very sexy, I think it should be, because you have, in the earnestness you believe, it could really give you the, smartness and the sustainability and safety, very good framework proposed by Pankaj. I think if you believe in that, you should definitely approach experts who, if nothing, at least bring two things to the table. One is experience of having talked to multiple such industry partners, multiple clients, and hence have a broader perspective. Second is they would be able to bring in certain frameworks using which you can analyze what is right for you. So that would be my answer.
Absolutely. And Manas, I think I would echo your thought in terms of having or starting the initiative, coming up with some problem statement first. That is one of the foremost thing to do, or right thing to do, because when the problems are well defined, you understand what are your potential losses, and that's what you attack with the digital initiatives and solve those losses. And that gives you instant ROI. There's nothing better than solving or saving some cost or improving your productivity and improving your top line and bottom line. So really well thought out answer. Thank you so much. Now, another thing in most of the companies, in 2016-17, when I was working with most of the companies, one of the challenge which I used to hear, and I'm looking forward to current status, is there are so many pilots which were being offered, and everybody was really offering up pilots. Beyond those pilots, some of those pilots were failing miserably because during that time, everybody was just saying that, hey, let's do predictive maintenance, regardless of what the status is, regardless if there is data. But there were few pilots which were genuine, but still it was failing because either the data was not available, resources were not really great. Now, what's your experience in last few years since the industry has moved on and most of the companies have invested heavily in the digital side of it, digitization, especially to capture the data? But still, are you seeing some of the pilots failing or many of the pilots failing? And how do you overcome from taking from pilots and POC phase to taking into the productionization phase?
No, that's a very good observation, Amit. There's a higher rate of failure of pilots in manufacturing industry. And I think it's purely because of the kind of complication we see in this industry. As I mentioned, each solution needs to bring in a combination of hardware and software. And equally importantly, it also needs a lot of collaboration with a larger man force on the ground. Right? The human capital involvement in digital 4.0, industry 4.0, IIoT in manufacturing is much larger than what we see for similar solutions in marketing, sales, in CPG, in retail, and BFSI and all. Right? If I were to deploy a solution on personalized email marketing, it actually can run as a complete software automation. But if I were to automate, maintenance, predictive maintenance of machines, I need to also engage with the maintenance and repair organization, the MRO. Right? I also need to engage with the inbound supplies, the maintenance supplies department, to make sure that the benefit of being able to predict which part will go wrong in the next 6 weeks is taken in the form of getting just-in-time inventory of the spare parts. So hence, I believe these are the complications, and by corollary, if you take care of these complications, the chance of success is higher. So typically, people end up thinking only in terms of, I have the data ready, I have a smart analyst on my team, and I have the compute power that can solve the software problem. And very honestly, I think that is something, as Pankaj also mentioned, that maybe you will end up doing it more costly initially because you have less experience, but that is solvable. What causes many of the pilot projects to fail is, one, you don't know what to do with the software. Right? Once you have identified the defect, what will you do? Right? Second is, you have practically created the software in a lab environment where you have taken the images, you have done the annotation, you have built the computer vision algorithm. But the moment you deploy it on the edge, either the compute fails or the image that you are capturing now, you have taken the image in a very artificial environment with good lighting. And if you don't create a similar environment on the shop floor, your algorithm will fail. Right? So having the knowledge or having an understanding of what will you do with the software, right? If you identify the defective piece, how would you put it on the next conveyor belt? Are you ready to invest in that? Do you have the space on the manufacturing shop floor to actually implement it? I have visited at least 25, 30 MSMEs also, and many of them do not operate in very huge spaces where they can just expand the line. And line expansion is, a pilot project software wise would cost them nothing more than, let's say, $30,000-$40,000. But a line manufacturing could be worth, 10-15 lakhs additional and some space and, time. So I think having a complete understanding of how will you use the software, how will you finally see the ROI, is likely to reduce the number of pilots you do, but at the same time increase your success rate.
Yeah, in fact, just to build upon that, I think what I hear more of that partnership between the service provider, whether it is internal or external, with manufacturing or the end user, that's most important piece. So once the partnership is established, I think success of these pilots and POC, it just zooms. So I would just like to quote one example. Early on, when I was working with one of the plants in Southeast Asia, initially their request was the guys were spending like a couple of hours every week demonstrating or sending management reports. And every day they were spending half an hour early morning to get those earlier day stats. And they would put it up in Excel, complete that management analysis report, and they were sending it manually. Now, when I came in, I was like, guys, what do you want? Do you want report? I was like, okay, yeah, we want report. So I got my data, I put it up in SQL server, got a fantastic business intelligence report and sent it to them. Like still after a few days, I didn't hear back anything. Like, guys, what happened? And I got to know, I mean, those reports are good, but it's not in the same format. We are using one particular format to send management reports and discuss those reports every day on the line DDS. And if I'm not having in that template, we can't use it. So next day, we got it modified. We sent it in the manufacturing DDS template, and it was a runaway success. Like every day, 3 times a day during every shift changeover, they were using those reports. So essentially, the takeaway from this was essentially the partnership was the most important piece rather than the technology, because that's what drove the adoption. And that's how we actually increased the manufacturing process reliability from 60s to 80s in short span of time. But really, thanks, Manas. I think thanks for bringing up that point. Really wonderful. Now, coming to use cases, how do you think companies and manufacturers, or let's say companies, I'm saying broadly companies, because the use cases within Industry 4.0 are really broad, starting from supply chain to manufacturing to UA. But how do you think companies could start identifying the use cases? Is there a best way or better approach, what you have seen in the past, which works better?
See, I think, Amit, again, arising from the complications on the shop floor or even, other parts of manufacturing like supply chain and all being very operations heavy, I think choosing use cases which are less disruptive in nature initially till the time you build the confidence in analytics, in Industry 4.0, in the digital concept. So during the initial phases, when you're still building up the confidence, I think choosing less disruptive and end of the line kind of projects which require minimal intervention, but are more of an extension or towards the end of the process, in my opinion, are better use cases to pick up. Also, quoting from one of my interactions with Ms. Ambika Rajgopalan, she's a global AI leader, part of the Michelin leadership, and absolutely a fantastic brain when it comes to Industry 4.0. And she, during one of the panel discussions, mentioned that she would recommend that we take into account or rather take in confidence the people on the shop floor while building the use cases, rather than trying to co-opt them in later on. So if you actually, instead of building the use cases outside somewhere, if you actually be on the shop floor and build the use cases, you would be able to filter the use cases which will have their cooperation, and also you would know how to really make them successful. What is required to get them implemented. So I think that's another good practice I would recommend. Apart from it being less disruptive, also try to pick up something where it's easier to explain. Going along the lines of explainable AI, right? Don't pick up very, very costly or very, very complicated processes where the predictive maintenance explanation becomes quite difficult. See, while there are a lot of components in manufacturing or industry 4.0, I think there's a benefit also that compared to all other domains, there's a very high degree of causality between input data and the output. So if a machine, rotary machine is going to fail, there's physics behind it. It's not random. While when a human being responds to an email, it's kind of, I would say, less, quantifiable in scientific terms. So hence, if you pick up subsystems instead of solving for a predictive maintenance, solve for predictive maintenance of the failure of a, let's say, just the gear, or the or of a rotary part, or a bearing. So as much as possible, choose smaller use cases, smaller components, less disruptive, more towards the end of it, and most importantly, please do take in confidence the people who are going to actually work on the solution that you created. In fact, if you start from there, your chance of success is very high.
Absolutely. Love the idea of reducing friction to start with, and taking simplest possible use cases which are explainable in nature. Really, thanks, Manas. One last question, Manas, and then we'll close this panel discussion. But I would love to continue this conversation, but for the sake of time, I'll just ask one last question.
Sure.
From the current status of AI in manufacturing post-pandemic, and like digitization, post-pandemic, I heard digitization is really thriving or going really taking exponential jump. How do you think in next 2-3 years the manufacturing industry will evolve, and whole digitization and digital transformation will evolve, and how is Fine taking a role in that part of revolution?
So I think it's progressing at a fairly good clip. With all the underlying technologies are being created and adopted at a fast pace. There'll be a lot of initial failures also in terms of edge computing, or the kind of data pipelines that you create, or the kind of image acquisitions, or the implementation, hardware, software combination, IT, OT, interlayering and all. But the speed at which it is being discussed across different forums, industry forums, industry bodies like NASSCOM are doing amazing job when it comes to propagating an entire ecosystem, and not just analytics, hardware, software, consulting. They are also bringing in the actual, manufacturers who are consuming these use cases, and they are actually supporting the ecosystem by giving the right use cases. So along 2 or 3 different dimensions, I see that there will be tremendous growth in the next 2 years. One would be where we would see a lot of improvement in the underlying data acquisition technologies on the shop floor. There would be a lot of development in how the inference is fed back into the system. And if you let's say if you are able to detect a potential failure, let's say in certain cases only a few minutes ahead, you may want to not have just a human in the loop, but some sort of an automation, in which case you want a automated feedback loop. So I think integration of this hardware software combination, that will also increase quite a lot. They'll also be at a very domain level or a sub-segment level clarity on the use cases that you can start with. And one of my mentors mentioned to me that, hey, when you're talking to the manufacturers, you need to talk about where is the money. If I'm spending $100,000, where's the $1 million going to come from? So I think that clarity will also evolve. A lot of standardization will come into play. And using some of the labs that we have created in places like Jamshedpur on our own, or with in partnership with Bomber, Bangalore, or partnership with the SMCC and all. We are actually trying to create many of these frameworks. Create some of the ways to analyze the situation and all. And apart from bringing on the capability, we are trying to kind of enhance the entire ecosystem, partnering with image acquisition companies like and sensor industrial automation companies like Bomber, or with Hexagon on the entire system integration side when it comes, or with certain companies which can do the line manufacturing actually. Right? We are trying to not just build the software, but try to create some sort of an ecosystem. And we are getting very, very good response from manufacturers of core industries, non-core industries, plastics, everywhere.
Great. That was really insightful, Manas. So thank you so much. Thanks for being with us. It was really pleasure talking to you. And as always, look forward to hearing more in future.
Absolutely, my pleasure. My pleasure, Amit. And this is a fantastic session going on. Thanks a lot to all the panelists, all the hosts, to you, Amit, as well, and to Pankaj Rai for participating in this. Afine is always indebted to you all. Thank you.
Thanks, Manas. All right, everyone. That was our session with Manas, Fireside Chat, to demystify AI in manufacturing. Moving forward to our next session, which is the last element in our today's conference, we will be having a fantastic panel discussion, which is from 4 industry experts and great amount of experience. So I'll start with introducing Saurabh Bhatnagar. He's the partner with E&Y in metals and mining associated sectors, having 25 years of work experience working with organizations like Accenture, ITC, HUL. Saurabh will reflect his Industry 4.0 experiences in adopting Industry 4.0 in consumer or metals industries and mining industries. Welcome, Saurabh. You're on mute.
Thank you very much, Amit. Yes, most welcome, and it's a pleasure to be here. I'm looking forward to the panel discussion with this very eminent panel that we have with us.
Thanks, Saurabh. Introducing Sabu Isaac. Sabu is a VP in service market for Volvo. He's based in Malaysia. And Sabu, thank you so much for being with us. Sabu has over 30 years of work experience in Volvo and other automotive companies in various geographies. Sabu is one of our experts who would reveal some of the product life cycle after sales. So when we talk about Industry 4.0, it has also implications beyond post-selling. And that's where Sabu will throw some lights by the impact of digital and after-sales services in Industry 4.0. Welcome, Sabu.
Thank you, Amit, for the introduction. Looking forward to be a part of this panel.
Thanks. Now, welcoming Amit Saluja. So Amit Saluja, he's a senior director and center head for NASSCOM for the COE of IoT and AI. He has 25 plus years of work experience with the companies like IBM and GE. And he's the one who interacts daily with manufacturers within India, with MSMEs and SMEs within India via NASSCOM. And they are building really fantastic ecosystem for manufacturers plus digital service providers and some of the startups. So Amit, congratulations on doing that work, and thank you so much to come along with us and being a partner for this event. Welcome on board.
Thank you, Amit, and it's been pleasure to be part of this panel. Looking forward to the discussion.
Great. We have Dr. Anup with us. Dr. Anup, can you turn on your video?
I have already turned on my video.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So, Dr. Anup, he's a chief of scientific services at Tata Steel. He's been working with Tata Steel from 1990s and worked with technical services and technology department of long and flat at Tata Steel product divisions. He is one of our experts to share some of the perspectives on biggest steel manufacturers, along with the process and digital transformations which is happening in the process-driven industries. So welcome, Dr. Anup, on this panel discussion. We are happy to have you.
Thank you.
Great. So thank you so much, everyone. I think we've got really great experiences over here. I'm starting with our panel discussion, opening up our first point of discussion. I'd like to ask a question to Saurabh, starting with digital transformation. So Saurabh, I think you've been talking to several industries, several companies, and I think that's great. And from your experiences of digital transformation in the context of Industry 4.0, what kind of investments companies should look for? What is the typical timeline or period for the companies when they are planning for Industry 4.0 or digital transformation initiatives?
Yeah, Amit, thanks a lot for that question. It's a very relevant question, and it is straight out of the type and the nature of problem that I solve for my clients when I go and meet them. I think the thing that I would like to start by saying is that, the term digital transformation is used very loosely, right? And one must understand what it means really, at least in the way it has evolved over a period of time. In my opinion, it is not a suite of very fancy, expensive applications which are supported on a platform and running in a firm. That's not digital transformation. Neither is it a manless factory, right? Where everything is running through robots and everything is being done by automations which are extremely expensive and perhaps hard to afford for many firms, right? I also don't think it is a very advanced suite of very complex algorithms of neural nets and deep learning, which are telling everything of what's going to happen in the future. I have not seen any such factory, and I don't think I'll ever see one like that. So it's very important to set the context of what digital transformation is before I answer the question. To me, in my experience, whenever I talk to people and my clients about digital transformation, I talk about it's a stage of maturity, right, in a firm where all the people in the firm across the organization, right from the shop floor worker right to the CEO of a firm, are supported by the right tools, right, with the right training, right, and they have absorbed it to a level in order to run a set of business operations which clearly impact a set of business metrics, right? And those business metrics are not just any business metrics, but business metrics which are considered most crucial for executing on a strategy of market success. And different firms have different reasons for being successful in the market, right? For some firms, it is just the product quality. For others, it is service. For some others, it is just the timely delivery, where the differentiation may not be in your, for example, the product, right? So, a digital transformation journey has to impact the metrics which are making you successful in the market, right? And these metrics, therefore, especially on a shop floor, when we look at it, these metrics may be of speed. It may be of metrics of simplicity. It may be agility, reliability, quality on the shop floor, etc. All of that. But digital transformation, therefore, I must say again, is right people having the right type of access to tools with the right training and right absorption, so that they can do their jobs much better, faster, quicker, impacting the right metrics which matter to the firm. On the journeys of digital transformation in firms, I don't think it's a journey which it ever ends, especially when you consider shop floors, right? I don't think that's the case. My worry is always that firms are looking for too many answers even before they start the journey. I think the challenge is to get out of the inertia of tell me more. They should begin the journey somewhere in a small way, if the case may be, to commence that journey and then start driving it much like most of the shop floors do very well, a continuous improvement program, right? And continuous improvement program in the yesteryears, the things that we used to do and learn in our colleges and schools and do when we were younger in our doses will be things like TPM, TQM, basics, getting the basics right. And I think the digital solutions and transformation should only enable those type of things better, right? Because ultimately those are tools that get you better quality, better productivity, and better safety. So in terms of journey maps, I think it should be thought of as a never-ending journey. Once commenced, start small, experiment, but scale it up and have a plan, right? The issue in my experience has been the commence journey, right? On the investment side, every firm today, in whatever little they do, even if you're buying a PLC machine, for example, a small lathe cutting machine, right? It comes equipped with methods on the basis of which and sensors that is capturing data from that, right? Now you can always access the data and do multiple things with that, right? Most of the firms today have invested in core ERPs of their organizations, right? Some of which are linked or have access or been connected to their OT systems. So the point I'm making is, you calibrate your investments to the nature and the type. I think much of what Manas was saying, right? To the type and the nature of the identified business challenges. And then incrementally keep making investments as you see the results keep coming in, the ROI of the previous investments made are visible to you. Making upfront commitments on investments which basically look good to have, but not necessarily have, are not really. The investments have to be calibrated to add customer value and are impacting the metrics of, in the traditional world, I used to call it PQC DSM targets, right? Productivity, quality, cost, delivery, and service. So I think when you've bought machines and you're running a plant, you already have the basic investments made. Start utilizing them, start utilizing the information and data from that, and then keep adding to your investment once you start getting returns on the analytics and the data that you're doing on those investments. For very large scale factories, like an oil and gas plant or a metals and mining plant, etc., of course, the investments are already, once again, made with the OEMs. And there you have to think about data ingestion engines, data storage engines, cloud, etc., all of that. But those, again, have to be calibrated with the need of the business. I'll pause there.
Great. I think that's a great answer, Saurabh. Thank you so much. Start small and focus on ROI. Fund your next investments through returns from your past investment. I love that strategy. Thank you so much. Moving on to Amit Saluja. So the question for you is specifically from Indian ecosystem. I think you've been associated with NASSCOM, and one of the questions which I have is looking at Indian manufacturing ecosystem in context of digital and Industry 4.0. Where do you think we are? And when we are seeing India as manufacturing hub for the globe, how do you think when we'll reach that goal, or where do you think we are going? Amit? I think
it's not online.
It's not online.
Yeah.
Right. Again, Anup, if you have any thoughts on this question, that will be great.
Could you come again, please, if you don't mind?
So the question is from Indian manufacturing ecosystem and Industry 4.0, where do you think we are at? What juncture we are? And how do you think it is going to evolve? And you can answer it from the Tata Steel experiences and rest of the industry interactions.
Great. So, from the Tata Steel's perspective or from the steel manufacturing company's point of view, I would say that we are in the very nascent stage, but fully prepared as well, or sort of in a phase which I will like to label as curious phase, that, okay, there is a possibility of sort of having the intervention which is digital in nature. So there is a lot of foundation that has to be built. There is a lot of debates to be had as to what are the areas where the gains can be, can be of lot of potential. I'll tell you of a understanding that sort of is the backbone of moving forward, which is about, over a period of time, steel industries typically, they have their origin way back. I mean, probably more than 100 years old. So over a period of time, what has happened is many a process have been improved upon tremendously. You can attribute it to, let's say, design excellence. I mean, design what used to be on the drawing boards are, supported by a lot of, computer-aided drawings. Then you have better understanding of the process. I mean, the curriculum is also responsible for it, because you could do the simulations, you could have a 3D. Your compute powers have increased. So what happens is you are able to do a lot of complex things on the computer itself, rather than requiring a lot of expensive tests or trials. Then you have something like a value engineering, which you develop using the same skilled people that you have sort of honed over a period of time, those who are domain experts and stuff like that. But all that this has led to is that it has dramatically improved the yields, strike rates. It's no longer, it's a hit and trial kind of the process. So it's pretty predictable. So now the point is the metrics that are to be improved upon, which are business centric KPIs, they are really difficult. But then the delta gain, I mean, I'm talking about the conundrum that we have. The delta gain to be had is infinitesimal, because now, let's say if you're running at 99% efficiency, so there is an opportunity of 1%. I'm not saying that on each of the attributes you are at 99%, but then the conundrum is that the opportunity for improvement is really minuscule. Now, the total effort that is required in terms of all the data storage, data retrieval, the algorithm, the manpower, etc. So these have to be justified. Like typically you have ROI justifications, and then those kind of debates have to happen. The other conundrum is, for the kind of insights that the industry is looking for, you got to have the data available first. Now, for this data to become available, you got to have the sensors also in place, which are giving you the right kind of data that you can manipulate, or you can actually sort of overlay on it your artificial intelligent model, and then probably start seeing that a normal human analysis does not sort of throw back. So this is something required. So what is the current concern of the industry of steel making, integrated iron steel kind of nature of the job? So you want that in the market, you should be coming out with some new products. New products meaning you got to have product attributes also. I mean, rather than bringing about coming out with a completely first of its kind of a product, you sort of find out what are the critical attributes of those properties, some of these properties, which you can sort of improve upon, and the customer also can get to see the value in it. And how is this going to be possible? This is where this data, which are really overarching, where you have data not only from the manufacturer, probably it will require some approach like a genome approach, where while you secure the importance of the data, its security, etc. But then you are also making it available. Your customers' process control data, that also has to be available. The design data, what this is meant for. end user, I mean, a car manufacturer's journey starts with steel company. Then you have the body makers, bodybuilders, and then you have people like us who are making use of it. So all this data somewhere you should be able to tap into and then make use of this artificial intelligence techniques or industry 4.0, all the suite that it offers to come out with the, the product attributes of the future. So I would say the industry is in a phase to basically understand, relate, establish those connects. I would put it this way, that this could be the Uberization of scientific data, where all the valuable stakeholders have to come around at what will be the modus operandi, what will be these data, who will carry out the authenticity of this information, etc., is something that I would put that this is where this is what the future of Industry 4.0 should be, or digitalization effort should be, and then we got to understand where do we stand right now.
Love the way you say, Dr. Anup, Uberization of the data and industry, because that's where when you take data, facilitate data transfer across the companies and making it available across the departments, real time or near real time, that's when the power of data can be exploited. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
That was very insightful. Amit, coming back to you. So the question was, based on your interactions with NASSCOM and rest of the industry partners, SMEs and MSMEs, where do you think we are in terms of smart manufacturing as a nation, and in terms of our vision of global hub for manufacturing? How do you think how far we are, or how we'll reach that goal?
Yeah, I mean, it's thanks, Amit. First of all, this really a very important question, and I think this is extremely important for the whole manufacturing industry to really understand where are we. The challenge, basically, what we are seeing is there is a lot of disparity, or we call it as a digitization asymmetry within the manufacturing ecosystem that we have. So I think while Dr. Anup talked to say a lot about the use of the data and Uberization of the data, and then Saurabh also talked about some of those areas where the manufacturers should be working upon. But when we actually see from a maturity point of view, the large companies, and if I talk about SMEs or MSMEs, there is a huge gap. When we talk about large companies, they basically at least have reached to a stage where there is some level of digitization is there. Digital systems are in place in the organization. It's fairly most of the organizations it is there. The gap where it is still not there is basically the connectivity part, like when we talk about cyber physical systems or the human machine interaction. So the connectivity even has got established, but I still feel it is at a partial level. It is still kind of to be done more, but it has started happening. And then the third thing, which is a very important element of the whole industry 4.0, is basically the intelligence part of it. So from a digital maturity, when we say that how much mature is an organization, there are 3 parameters against which basically, at least we are assessing. And we follow SIRI framework, which definitely is a very helpful. So those 3 parameters are process, technology, and the organization. And within the process or the technology part of it, there is an element of intelligence. And intelligence is the thing which is still coming through in the organizations. Again, it is still not there. So the decision making has started happening. But when we talk about the real-time decision making, that is still needs to be improved. So the good part is, I think things is progressing at a very good pace, and it's going well. Now, but when we come to the other sector, which is an MSME sector, that's where the big problems are. And whatever we talked about, whether the digital systems or connectivity or intelligence, there's hardly anything there. what MSMEs have is the automation. They all have all the beautiful machineries, equipments, which have been imported from all around the world. So automation is there even in the small MSME also. I mean, which is a good part to see. I mean, in fact, in the last 6 months, I have interacted with more than 150 MSME leaders, and I've visited more than 50 plants. And what really came out is automation is there, but the digitization or the industry 4.0 that is actually not there. And this disparity between the large and the small is not good for the manufacturing ecosystem, because large and MSMEs cannot work in isolation. There are, I mean, in every instance, basically, they will be working together from a supply chain connectivity. They will be connected. Some will be suppliers to each other. Some will be customers. So the companies, whether it is a small or a large, needs to kind of work in hand to hand. And we cannot have a stage where the innovation or the progress in the digital adoption is happening only at a large company. The MSMEs companies also needs a backing up to basically make them matured enough. So I think that's where I'll say, where are we? So it's good to see large companies really moving forward, and there are things which definitely will even get better as the time to come. And MSMEs are the other sector that we all need to help them.
Great, Amit, thanks. That was very useful, and I like the fact that you've shared that there is huge gap between large and smaller organizations, which is SMEs and MSMEs, especially with the fact that when you are looking at supply chain for automotive OEMs, their suppliers are going to be SMEs or MSMEs in that regard. And essentially for the whole ecosystem, it has to come up to a stage so that we are able to drive this advantage. Now, on building upon that point, I would like to ask Saurabh. Saurabh, like, what do you think, where is the gap which is coming up from the ecosystem point of view? Why there is potential gap which is forming from technology point of view, or if there is something lacking in terms of data ecosystem, what's causing this kind of gap from large to smaller companies? And in your observation, what is potential approach or solution to fix that?
Yeah, I think the point about the gap between the large organizations and the lesser of the sort of smaller organizations pointed by Amit is actually real. And we see it all the time, right? And I think the reasons for that are just 3 or 4, in my opinion. One is just the awareness of what digital transformation, right? And other components of that, the connectedness, the intelligence, the data pipelines, the construct of that can do to the business is perhaps missing, right? They're just too busy and too occupied with having to run their machines in office up to a certain productivity level and call it the end of the day. I think clearly one, the aspect of having to get more out of their assets using digital as a mechanism is perhaps not occurring to them enough, and perhaps they don't have any exemplars perhaps which they can copy and use in their size of the business. Perhaps one of the reasons could be that they don't have those exemplars. The second I think thing is that large companies, by virtue of their capacity, are also able to train people and make them digitally savvy, whereas the smaller organizations are not capable of doing that, despite the fact that they have bought machines, imported machines, especially if you look at the discrete industry, right? They are mostly imported. They come from the likes of Germany, Italy, which by design themselves have a lot of digitization inbuilt in them, with sensors, with visuals. But those are then not used enough and appropriately to be able to get additional productivity or safety or quality related benefits. So that's a second aspect, right? People and their training to be able to use that information that's being generated on the machines to get them those answers. I think the third thing is that in their own mind, they think that doing digital is more cash and more cash burn. And they will have to invest in XYZ type of infrastructure in order to be so-called doing digital, which, as I rightly called out in my definition, it is not about having to spend money, but spending money on the few right things with the right set of tools for people across the organization to do their jobs better with speed and agility. So I think these are 3 or 4 misconceptions that exist in the smaller versus the large organizations, which I think can be limited. And one smaller reason for them would be that the drive from the top down in the management layers, even in the smaller and the medium to small scale organizations, perhaps is not yet there, which perhaps in the larger organization, just by virtue of their awareness, they're able to drive it harder, faster, and make the impact happen.
Yeah, I think management sponsorship certainly plays a significant role in digital transformation initiative. Once the CXOs are convinced, I think it becomes much more simpler for the rest of the organization. Now, coming to Sabu. Sabu, this is a question for you, specifically from product lifecycle and after sales point of view, and digital challenges where you've been using analytics and AI. Can you share some of the use cases and learnings from this area wherein companies could take some inspiration and something which can be broadly applicable in post product lifecycle or product after sales cycle?
Sure, Amit. It's a good question. And most of the points are covered by the earlier panel members. Still, go ahead. We need to make customer journey as part of our design and delivery process, where we empathize with customers and design relevant solutions. Customer journey maps not only to foster empathy with customers and greater alignment between teams, but also to work well with other customer-centric methodologies, such as design thinking, agile development, which help companies design and deliver better customer outcomes. The digital team should use customer journey and the ecosystem map as a disciplined process to design, develop, and deliver digital and cross-touchpoint experiences that will help the firm to win, serve, and retain customers and customer satisfaction. In a world where we create more data than we can consume, and we all struggle to make most of our time, the new digital workplace will save us precious hours and energy every day, offer to a flexible and meaningful work. Over time, people who are part of the organization, whether he or she is in an office or at a factory or a workshop, will benefit from. Like, if, for example, the personalized access to relevant and updated company information, preferred application or latest document gathering in one single place, freedom to access the content from any device, whether it is PC, mobile, phone, or tablets, the ability to tap into collective knowledge through a powerful sets of information and colleagues. And also in terms of social tools to collaborate efficiently inside large projects, communities, and across teams. We believe that the artificial intelligence will play a major role in telematics to get to know more about the customer's application, driver usage, and enable proactive guidance to suit the vehicle application or usage, and also with respect to the predictive maintenance to reduce the unplanned stops.
Absolutely, Sabu, and I love the idea of having flexibility to be able to access the data at any time, anywhere, and digital consumer collaboration, because that's what is today's need. Everybody has been working remotely, and almost for me, it's been 2 years plus, which is I've been working remotely. So being able to access data from anytime, anywhere with any of your devices, that is one of the most extremely powerful example of like enabling the ecosystem along with your manufacturing, and within manufacturing as well. Just to give an elaborate that example, having those manufacturing reports published on your mobile phone is extremely powerful and liberating, rather than going onto your desktop or laptop to check out daily reports. So a really great example. Thanks for bringing it up over here. Coming to the next question, Amit, I have a question for you. From digital solutions standpoint, what are Indian manufacturing industries or companies, what kind of digital solutions are they buying? Are they buying kind of digital needs or digitalization solutions or kind of platforms? What kind of investments which are being happening, broadly speaking?
Yeah, sure. So again, maybe I'll answer this question from the both the large and the SMEs kind of a point of view, because what they're looking forward is very different, and just because of their maturity level that they are. So from a large organization's point of view, there is a lot of focus right now that we are seeing is on the innovation part of it. And so um, how do we kind of keep improving the productivity and efficiencies in the plants through new ways of doing the thing? So either through maybe optimizing the process or real-time decision making that we were talking about. So I think there's a lot of focus right now on the real-time decision making within the plant. So the kind of solutions say around the edge computing is definitely getting a lot of attention. The other areas I'm seeing is more on the MES side, so the production scheduling, because like there's a focus to be more flexible in the manufacturing and also the more kind of coordinated. So MES is definitely is the ask from a lot of companies. On the supply chain side, I'm seeing well, demand forecasting definitely was the one which companies have started, but now even we are talking about demand sensing also, which takes care of a lot of these COVID kind of situations that come in with the VUCA world. So there's a kind of an upgraded version of from demand forecasting to demand sensing. So that's where there is I'm seeing the focus. Plus what I said earlier from a intelligence point of view, I think that's where the other areas which are important right now for the organizations, and they are thinking through it. So on the intelligence part of it, how do you take more decisions, better decisions, and even the some of those, like even the production lines we are talking about, like a lot of Pokayokas are being kind of being implemented. And on the quality side, I'm seeing a lot of applications right now on the computer vision solutions. And this is something I think which will really bring out the transformation, because human-based inspection will always have some gaps in the quality. So idea is not to basically bring in those quality inspection systems just to remove the humans, but it is more about improving the overall quality. And I think that's good to see this focus kind of coming in. One area I think we have talked about in our discussion also, and which is a very hard fact, but predictive maintenance, I think everyone knows it is very important. I don't think we have to teach anyone that why predictive maintenance is good for you. But still the adoption level of predictive maintenance right now in the manufacturing plants, even in the large companies, is still not to the extent where it should be there. So we understand there are a lot of ifs and buts comes up in manufacturers' mind when they are actually thinking through for the solution. So, but it is gradually improving, and I think this is where we need to kind of create more and more confidence in the manufacturing companies by showing them some real success stories about these kind of solutions where the ROI assessment is not straightforward or simple, because wherever there is a straightforward ROI, I think the manufacturers take decisions immediately. There's hardly taken time. But whenever it's the situation where you say that whether I will avoid one breakdown or two breakdown, then that's where the ROI calculation starts changing. So I think that's the area I still feel it is very important, and then it is kind of coming through. From the MSME point of view, I think it is just kind of started walking, right? So I think they are just looking for a standalone point blank solutions, like for example condition monitoring. So even just to kind of having a few sensors in place which will giving them some data which starts giving them some idea about how the assets are there. Other areas I'm seeing interest from the MSME sector is on the energy management, so reducing the power consumption. I think this is something which I'm seeing interest from a lot of SMEs on how to save the energy consumption. Shop floor digitalization is the other thing which people want it, but again, not very clear how much it will benefit them. So right now, you go to any SME plant, you will find registers everywhere where people kind of are noting down the every step, the work in process movement. And that's where I think the some kind of platforms or the which will be of help to them, which can digitize this, so that paperless office kind of a thing. I think that's the concept which is important. And then MSMEs need also, but then they're really not sure how to go about it. Even, I mean, I'm surprised there are a lot of SMEs who doesn't even have ERP. So I think that's where even the first step then that they need to take. I mean, so ERP was on the other side that they really need to. So I think these are some very kind of an high level views I have from whatever the interactions that we are having with the manufacturing ecosystem. So hopefully it will be helpful.
Great, great. Amit, I think that was really insightful. Now, just building upon that, Dr. Anup, here's a question for you. Basically, the adoption stories from across the India or MSMEs and larger manufacturer. Now, the challenges that Tata might be, and which is completely process-driven industry, that might be huge, really. So, what are some of the success stories from digital manufacturing or smart manufacturing you've seen in Tata Steel? And how do you really start to manage the data in a process industry? Typically, I would like you to generalize your example so that people can take away, audience can take away from there, because from a process industry, managing the data, that becomes one of the biggest challenge. So, and then from there, learning the success stories, that would be and request to you if you can share some success stories.
Sure. First, I would like to start with what is the gap between MSA. Just a small point. Many MSMEs, I believe that they are, dovetailed with an integrated organizations. So they are actually an extension of, the larger organizations. So they really have less freedom to sort of play around with their processes and whatnot. I mean, they are given a bunch of, let's say, some input material, and then the scrap is taken out, and then they have to do. And then probably they will do themselves a lot of favor if they were to believe that they are not supposed to sort of only come out with a, financially, it's sort of a clone, which is a cheaper clone of otherwise, which is being produced by the larger organization. And if you were to see, just juxtapose MSMEs with some of the startups are pretty much entirely on their own. So from the starting point to the end point, it pretty much in their control. So probably digitization efforts for them is much more simpler, and then probably they start off by keeping that into consideration. Coming back to some of the success stories, or as we have experienced, it is essentially in the areas of process control, and secondly, in integrating number of manufacturing units, and with that of marketing and sales information. In the sense, what I want to say is that a large organization has silos of production facilities. I mean, you have raw material coming in, then you have the first stage of processing. So it has its own set of processes in place, and it has its own quality attribute. Traditionally, what was happening a few years ago was that it was the end quality attribute, which was the input for the next stage. But then now the transformation is this, that even the process of arriving at the end is something which is also being paid attention on. Okay, you reached a certain quality stage. So how predictable is that? I mean, because you are churning out in large quantity. So whether the sample that you used for ascertaining the quality attribute, that itself was good or not. So you can fall back on the data that this is the process data. So this would have ideally produced this thing, prediction, and therefore, and then this is what the actual results happen. So first thing is that the down the line streams have to be integrated with upstream processes with the clarity on their individual processes, impact of it, its impact on the outcome that they produce at successive stages. And therefore, if there was to be a problem at, let's say, at the stage 3 of the manufacturing unit, so stage 1 and stage 2 also know that what needs to, if there was to be a struggle because of the input variance or input quality attributes, so what must change and where must it change? These are all integrated. As I said, marketing and sales, I mean, typically you have a semi-finished product. So you reach out to the customer. So what you do is that you devise a mechanism to understand how the customer's process is reacting to the semi-finished good that you produce. So there is a application data that has to be dovetailed with what you produce, and this cycle gets rolled over again and again to sort of keep coming out with a performance levels which are better than the past.
Right. Great. Thank you, Dr. Anup. We are almost on top of the hour. I have one more question for Sabu, and then we'll go to Q&A from the audience. We do want to give them an opportunity. So Sabu, one question specific for you. From a cultural challenge standpoint, how do you manage the change management in Industry 4.0, especially post-product service sales, or some of the areas which are not directly driven by the manufacturing? So how do you drive the change management in this area? You're on mute. Sabu?
Yeah, I'm sorry about it. Yeah. The wanted digital way of working will become a reality as we move away from our traditional beliefs that power or merit comes from knowing it all. Instead, we aim to develop a culture of learning it all. Whenever there is a change, there will be a few resisting to change. However, we need to drive the change as a digital journey and contributing to the performance culture. The intelligent digital workplace will facilitate the behaviors wanted to fulfill our company's aspiration. We need to create an environment where we feel safe to share work openly, even if it is imperfect, and also to ask for help in public forum. We also need to work actively with trust as an information which is readily available and everyone can have a direct access to it. All employees are responsible to join in this change. As always, when it comes to behavior, it starts with oneself. And as leaders, we are having a special role to play in showing them the way. The new digital workplace will come a reality gradually. We need to implement the technologies, changes step by step, allowing employees to feel comfortable with the new tools and allowing us to draw to the users' feedback and to design the next solution. So it is a continuous process.
Absolutely, that's a really fantastic thought, Sabu. Great to live with that thought in terms of trusting everyone, leveraging the ecosystem, knowing and unlearning and learning new things. That's a way to drive a change, and I think that's really fantastic because in today's digital transformation, those are all the things everybody in an organization needs to start and follow so that the change becomes easier. Now, we'll move on to questions from the users, audiences. So this is a question for Amit Saluja. How are SMEs responding with manufacturing becoming a global play? So, and global brands penetrating into India. So question is basically, how are SMEs responding with manufacturing becoming a global play and global brands coming to manufacture in India?
Yeah, so I think MSMEs are very positive about it. There is a lot of focus on the Make in India, which is definitely increasing the demand and increasing the supply base also. So I'm really happy to see there is there is a lot of MSMEs who are opening new plants. I mean, and there is good number of MSMEs. I mean, from the current only, while there are new MSMEs who are coming up, but even the existing manufacturing MSMEs, most of them are talking about capacity expansion. There is not a kind of, and very few MSMEs where we will talk about will say that, I mean, their plant is not utilized. So I think from a production point of view, they are doing well. Now, from the challenge basically they face is the MSMEs currently are not globally competitive. So a lot of these companies, they are doing exports also. They're working for their customers in Europe, Africa, I mean, in all parts of the world. But the challenge that they face is when they kind of bid for it, I mean, they are not able to make it in all the times. And one of the reasons is they are not globally competitive. Quality issues are still, they don't lose out because of the quality. What they lose out is because of the cost, and which is where I think the technology is the thing which is going to help them. Because with their help of a technology, they can definitely do the cost of optimization, and then their cost structure can be improved, and which is what we need of the hour. They are facing with another problem is the raw material prices have skyrocketed, and any MSME you talk, every MSME will say that prices of raw material what it was earlier and which is now it's more. So I think there are a lot of cost pressures which are there. There is no dearth of the demand. I think the demand is coming, and which they are confident about it. Now, how can you actually meet those demand in a more cost-effective way, which is why the problems are there. And then from NASSCOM, basically we are whatever we can do to build so we are basically building an ecosystem for the MSMEs to kind of help them at least understand to some level what really they can do. So the program we have on the Smart Manufacturing Forum, that's specially designed for the MSMEs and to basically build skills and the capability building on the digitization, and plus can get some level of help on that option also. So we basically connect them with the solution providers. So we are there to help, and I know every industry and every solution providers and the large enterprises also are there to basically help the company. So it's really a very good story. So, but only thing is MSMEs needs to take the steps of technology adoption. Skills have to be built up. I think Saurabh very rightly said that all the challenges that are there in front of MSMEs right now and why they are not adopting, all those are very, very kind of relevant challenges, which is where MSMEs needs to work upon it. And we all are there to help.
Absolutely. Thanks, Amit. That's a great one. I don't think, Ravi, how much time do we have? Do we have time for one more question?
Yes, we have. We can ask two more questions.
Yeah. So one of the questions which came up, what are the current challenges of OT and IT interface? I feel that's especially relevant at this point of time in terms of what are the current ongoing challenges, or what are the basic challenges of IT and OT interface? Dr. Anup or Saurabh, any one of you would like to take up?
I'm sorry, because of some connectivity issue, I could not get the question. Could you?
The question is, what are the current challenges in OT and IT interface?
I'm not in a position to answer that.
No, I can give it a shot. I think the challenge of IT OT is real. One cannot ignore that, right? I think it is indeed real, and there are very few companies who have actually been able to make that happen successfully because of the sheer nature of the data that gets generated from the OT systems, the rapidity, the speed, scale, variety, and the quantity of data that is generated, and the data that's sitting in the IT systems. I think as such, if one decides to do it, it can easily be done, right? It's a matter of writing the right type of code with the right type of people in order to make it happen. IT OT integration is a reality of the future. It comes in handy for solving problems of the markets, of supply chains in particular, especially when you have to plan for production and get real-time information from the plant and then loop it back to production, right? So it is possible to do, very much doable. I don't think there are any specific challenges, but it just takes time to do it for a given specific problem at hand. It's easier to, for example, take just OT related problems and IT related problems, solve them separately and get the solutions out independently. But it's an extremely mature step of the digital transformative journey that a firm takes. So I think nothing very difficult, easily doable, right use case, definitions should make it happen. Not a problem.
Exactly. And Saurabh, I think one of the biggest thing comes like when there is a right use case. With that right use case, you can come up with the right data and contextualization. That data contextualization is the key. Instead of trying to do everything at the same time, taking one small problem at a time, that drives the solution forward. That could be the approach in terms of IT and OT integration. But really great thought. Thank you so much.
Yeah, maybe just one point I can add it here is, so while I think the challenges which are also coming in because of the legacy systems, because not every time you will be able to get the data out of the systems which you can basically integrate with your IT system. So the integration of it is happening because of the legacy systems. Like if it is a new plant where all the new equipments are there, then it can be ensured that I think all the Modbus and all the protocols and everything kind of will be there. But most of these manufacturing companies will have old equipments also, for which which might not have Modbus or the data connectivity things which is there. So that's where it becomes possible now. How do you integrate that machine? So so there has been instance where the manufacturer has 50 machines, and out of that 10 or 15 machines cannot be integrated, 15 machines can be integrated. So that's where the integration problems basically comes up. For a new plant, it is not there, absolutely not there. But for the old plants, yes, it is an issue.
I'm absolutely right. I mean, those are the situations which are really unfortunate situations when every control systems company was kind of holding up data by themselves. Now in today's open source world where everything is open source, having or holding that data to yourself, just to yourself, is completely detrimental for the entire industry, I would say. Now, with that, I would like to really thank each one of you for your insightful session, really fantastic. What I heard in terms of panel is like start small, deliver continuous improvement. In terms of maturity, we heard the differences on small and medium enterprises, and some of the large enterprises, they're driving the transformation differently. So would be the focus areas. And in terms of process industry, there are so many different challenges to start with, but success is definitely there in terms of process control and industry. I would like to really sincerely thank you so much for coming over, participating in this panel discussion. Really delighted. Would have loved to continue, but we are already 15 minutes over. So thank you so much.
Amit, thanks for the lovely session. Really enjoyed. And thanks to my panel members for this really nice discussion. Thank you so much. And thanks to you.
Thank you, Amit. And thank you, panel members.
Thank you. Thank you. Very, very nice
Bye.
session.
Thank you. Thank you, Amit. Thank you, Afine.
Bye.
Okay. With that, everyone, all the participants, thank you so much for coming and joining this session. It's been really wonderful. You've been fantastic in terms of asking questions, really engaging audience. We would like to thank you from NASSCOM and Afine in terms of being present into the discussion, listening through and staying through a little more than 1.5 hours. And to summarize the session, I would like to just call out for our action. Time is right now. Take an action right now or be disrupted in coming years, because unless you take an action right now in terms of your digital transformation journey, the possibility is that you would become soon outdated. So reach out to anyone within Afine or me for any more discussions. We would like to thank you so much. Have a great day.